3 years back, I had the great pleasure of actually being on stage like these incredible farmers that we're gonna hear talk this morning, and it was such a great honor having Amigo introduce me coming onto the stage because most of us that farm don't think that we are a successful farmers. I don't know. There's at least I can speak for myself. I think it's because we face and struggle with so many issues on a daily basis. But uh, some people get to see things that we do, and that's why they ask us to be on stage. So it's such a great honor for me to be part of this uh, keynote and introduce these people again, which they might think that they're not very successful, but a great majority of organic farmers and people in the community would agree that they are doing beautiful things in their communities. And that is something that Amigo Bob always wanted us to strive for and fight for in the future. Um, I'm one of those kids that, the first time that I went to EcoFarm, I got a full scholarship from Wednesday through Saturday from the ALBA program, ALBA, the nonprofit in Salinas, that helps aspiring farmers and people that want to learn how to farm organically and perhaps start their own business. So, amigo Bob, aquí estamos, aquí estaremos, y es un gran honor uh, tomar parte de esto. Y va a ser muy difícil llenar sus zapatos, pero vamos a tratar. It's going to be very difficult to fill Bob's shoes because he was the one that would always introduce successful farmers. And it's a great honor for me to be doing this. And that just gives us an idea of what we need to do. We need to bring new people on to make sure that they take our place when our time comes. And this is a great example that Bob, amigo Bob, nuestro gran amigo, I guarantee you will be very, very happy to see that a new kid on the block is doing what traditionally he would be doing on a Friday morning at EcoFarm, at Asilomar, that it's raining today. And that's something that Bob always wanted to see, rain, rain. And sometimes we needed to wait until Saturdays when the conference was ending to do the rain dance out there on the white sandy beaches of Asilomar. But let's hear these beautiful people that we have speak today. It's going to be an exciting morning. I would like to, if we're ready, introduce the first couple that will be giving us their experiences as organic farmers and where they are, what they're doing, and what their farm is all about. If we're ready to do, let's start. So, Blake and Stephanie Alexander, family farm, Crescent City, California, where the redwoods meet the sea in their northern California's Humboldt and Del Norte counties. Blake and Stephanie Alexander, along with their 5 children, work together as a family. Their primary focus is on health and starts with the soil. Their dairy cows and hens enjoy the true organic living as they graze on open pastures alongside each other. Blake and Stephanie started dairying in 1988 in Southern California, and in 1992, bought a existing operation in Del Norte County, converting their dairy to organics in the late 1990s. Today, they operate a four-grass-based organic dairies with crossbreeds, A2, milk cows on irrigated pastures. I like to know what crossbreed A2 is. Maybe when I visit their farm, I'll learn because I don't know much about cows other than the leche is really good. Their milk's really good. They also grow a majority of their own hay on organic cropland in Modoc County, as well as raising organic pastured pork and grass-fed beef, with 5 kids and their spouses who now run the farm alongside them. They have 6 generations all Alexander family farms. Join me to welcome La Familia Alexander, which I had a great pleasure of meeting several times, and I actually joined them on stage a couple years back in DC to receive an award. Bienvenidos.
We are honored to announce Alexander Family Farm is the first and only dairy in the U.S. to be verified by the Savory Institute, invited by the Regenerative Organic Alliance to join their pilot program. Blake and Stephanie Alexander set out over 25 years ago to bring healthy, old-fashioned practices and values to their new farm. They directed their 5 generations of farming know-how into a singular focus on the health of their ecosystem, and they knew it depends on the soil. More than 2 decades later, their result is a shining, large-scale agriculture example of regenerative hope. With 4,200 cows grazing and 35,000 hens roaming on 4,300 organic acres, the Alexander soil has gone from 2% organic matter to 8 and 15% organic matter of rich soil teeming with life. Through the Alexander's regenerative efforts, the land has recovered critical coho salmon habitat and nearly extinct Aleutian geese, and is home to a large herd of Roosevelt elk, bald eagles, and hundreds of smaller species.
The concept that the soil is where it all starts. There's organic matter in here and is building at a really fast rate because of the management that we're utilizing here on the farm. Just to put a few numbers to it, 20 years ago when we started measuring our organic matters, it was about 2%. Here in the last couple of years, organic matters were coming in 7 and 8%, all the way up to 15%. And 50% of that organic matter, close to it, is carbon. So here we are on the farm, sequestering carbon, making beautiful soil, beautiful grasses, and forage for our beautiful cattle that are then converting it to A2 milk that we're selling under the label Alexander Family Farm.
The family continues to have a singular focus on a healthy ecosystem that supports their dairy and egg businesses and creatures great and small, and their community and customers.
Hi, we are Blake and Stephanie Alexander. We are truly honored by that video you just saw and the opportunity to do what we do. And welcome to our farm. Thank you, EcoFarm Group and management for choosing us this year and highlighting us. We really appreciate the opportunity. We just stepped out here in a field on January 8th to show you a little bit of what life's like on our farm. We've got a few of our grass-fed beef cattle, young ones, grazing right behind us. There's about 150 elk in front of us that we'll show you in a minute. And again, we're honored to be here.
And we love what we do, and we're excited to share with you what we do in this little presentation we have for you today. And here is what we are seeing. Just a beautiful area where the redwoods meet the sea.
There's the elk in the far background and management mobile right
center of the field.
That's Blake's old Toyota pickup that he is always driving around. I love this location on the ranch. This is a creek we fenced off years and years ago. Our kids were little and they planted trees with us. And now today this creek is beautiful. Salmon go through it. It's part of a story that represents what we do and how much we love the riparian areas on our farm, the environmental stewardship we do, and the care we have for the earth. This is Blake and Stephanie Alexander, and we're with Alexander Family Farm. We're thrilled, honored to be here. We're fifth generation dairy farmers, and we have 5 children, and that's what you're looking at now in this picture, 6th generation on the ground. Blake and I met at Cal Poly. We were ag business majors, dairy science majors, and love what we do. We both were born and raised in the dairy business, and I prayed I'd marry a dairy farmer, and here we are.
Lucky you. So this picture, I'd like to maybe focus back on that. It really encompasses a lot of who we are, what we do, and it's not about the people in the picture. Ultimately, it is from our perspective, of course, but it's about the environment that we're sitting in there, and that's which was a low spot in the field 25 years ago when we first started driving by that property. 5 years later, we were able to do a lease option and purchase it. And then one of the very first projects we did was a riparian restoration work right there in that little creek slash slough. And so this is the deep of summer here this past year, and it still has water in it. It's got fish in it. It's got trees that we planted back when Vanessa was so young. She doesn't remember her and I planting the very first trees we've ever planted. So about 23 or 4 years ago. And so it speaks to me. There's a lot of history and a lot of story and a lot of who we are right there. It's about, riparian restoration work, fencing the cattle off of the creek, and yet we still graze it periodically and keep it green.
So we are the first regenerative organic dairy with several certifications and programs. And our son Joseph put together this list of aiming to being unique and different for our business, for us individually, and also for our brand. And it's just one of those lists, when we looked at it that Joseph had done, we realized it was very important. It talked a lot of things, podcasts we like to listen to, for example, Entree Leadership. People know with branding, people want to know their farmers today. They want integrity. They want relationships. So this was all something we just thought we would share with you that helps us look back on where we are today and what we grew with this kind of education.
Yeah, and as you read through that list, there's a lot of really valuable stuff there that is a big part of our lives. I'd kind of like to just ask the question, how did we get here? How did Alexander's get to this point where we're now a regenerative certified operation by a couple of different groups? And it came by being open-minded. It came by being willing to learn what we were maybe doing wrong as a conventional farmer of the ground and the soil, and then just really understanding the system that God's given us with the biology and the microbiology, and paying attention to that, and really being great stewards of that, and honoring the plan, and truly honoring the soil.
So we threw that slide in just to give you that perspective, but we're going to go back to that riparian area that you saw our family picture in. This is actually that area when we planted those trees many, many years ago. We were all Holstein dairying back then. We did this plant restoration, and now today that stream is just beautiful, as you saw in that picture a couple slides ago, and salmon are flowing through it. And this is also that same riparian area. You can see we just love taking hikes. If you lived here, you would too. And the beauty of the stream and the benefit of the wildlife that they get at this location.
So when we first bought the farm and planted the trees, we really didn't know where it was going. We just knew it was the right thing to do. And that's really become a motto for us. I tell everybody, do the right thing at every turn, and let's hope that the right thing is sanctioned by all the agencies and groups that tend to oversee us, and of course our neighbors who see everything we do.
When we first bought the farm and planted trees, and we really deepened our knowledge on the soil microbiome, and we learned that organic matter, organic matter measured around 2%. And we learned from reading places and listening to speakers, we need that number to go higher and higher. And so we're really excited that today that organic matter on our farm that we're measuring is 8, 12, and even 15% over the years of working on our management intensive grazing with our cattle, focusing on our compost program, applying it to the land, our fertility, the nutrient management. All that has helped in the fertility of our pastures.
Yeah, and it's really cool that a couple of groups have come along, and they've named what we've been doing for a lot of years and literally a lot of generations here on the coast with our cool season grasses and our pasture management and grazing our cows, even back when 50 years ago when it was my grandfather and my dad, and we were just selling conventional milk. We're generally doing very, very similar management to what was done in the past. And again, that's honoring the system. So, all we did was basically learn that focus on organic matter. When you practice management, intensive grazing, and you follow all the principles involved, organic matter tends to grow. And then as you get a little better at it, you improve your composting system. We put compost out whenever and wherever we can, 20 to 30% of our farmland every year. And I say farmland, but it's all permanent pastures. We're never really tilling the soil. That would be too much of a disruption to what we're really farming out there, which is the biology.
So when Blake and I went organic 20 years ago, over 20 years ago now, Blake was an excellent cowman and still is today, but he really became a soil enthusiast. And I became this nutrient-dense mama worried about what we were feeding our kids and the calves. And I started studying nutrition. And we just love the soil, we love nutrient density, and we love that the soil is what creates the healthy grasses, which our cows eat and then generate a healthy product for consumers. And part of our education was going to EcoFarm, going to Acres USA, reading a lot of books and buying a lot of books at those different events we would go to. It was so fun learning this whole new world for us. And with the soil management and things we were doing, it was build it and they will come. All of a sudden, a bald eagle nest started building its big nest. When our daughter, Savannah, who's 21, she was in 2nd grade back when that bald eagle nest started building that nest. And the elk started coming, and our riparian areas just looked more and more beautiful. And the ducks and the frogs, all these things that were a part of our lives and helped tell our story as we grew in the knowledge of environmentalism and organics and regenerative approaches.
So we're going to talk a little bit about our egg program. And years ago when we put this picture in there, that's Christian and Savannah, a good 17, 18 years ago. And we started this egg operation. We named it Alexander Kids because it was all about keeping our 5 children busy and giving them a job with no employees, just something that completely 100% fell on their shoulders. And so we started with 150 birds and then got up to maybe 600 and then a couple thousand while they were in college or high school and through college. And it just kept growing and growing. And it was really a wonderful learning tool. As you can see, the eggs in the kitchen sink, that's where we washed for the first few years. And then it went to the kitchen or the carport outside for the next 4 years. And eventually we got into a real building.
And we truly are moving these portable chicken coops twice a week. It's really fun to see the chickens follow the chicken tractor or the coop that they live in. We have 17 portable coops, and we have 40,000 hens today. And so it's been fun to watch this business grow. It really was a way of raising kids and still help define who we are. And the most nutrient dense food out there, we believe, is the organic egg from pastured poultry. Incredible, powerful food, and so needed for nutrition, and coming off green grass 365 days a year just really helps continue to tell that story.
Yeah, and consumers fully appreciate it. We don't need to tell them how good the eggs are. They just see them and taste them, and they're hooked. And so it's really been a fun project a fun market to work in, because it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And we truly appreciate that.
And this is our daughter-in-law collecting eggs.
So that's the carton and the look. As we market now, we'll move on to the milk stuff.
Okay.
We've really now focused the last 3-4 years on marketing our milk and the uniqueness of what we bring to the market to our organic consumers. And that's selecting for the A2 protein. All cows were designed to have this digestible protein, but there was a mutation in the gene pool somewhere thousands of years ago or 100 years ago. And so there's now a mutated gene in there that doesn't digest fully. And so a lot of people have issues digesting dairy. And as we DNA test our cows and only pull milk from the cows that have the A2 protein, using different genes and different cattle around the country, we can make a milk that a lot more people can digest, and is a more pleasant experience for them. And so we're kind of the company out there in the marketplace that's helping bring dairy consumers back to real milk.
That's exactly right. And like people understand that gluten causes a lot of sensitivity. It's a protein. Well, the A1 protein it's the A1 beta casein is also a protein, and a lot of people are understanding that they have autoimmune diseases linked to proteins, and it might be the A1 protein.
So this just pasture walk with a bunch of our employees. We try to do that as often as we can. That's how we learn. Went out on a rainy day to see what's going on in the fields, what's going on in the soil, and what's going on underground.
And we started our regenerative organic path long before we knew the name of regenerative. We have since learned that hundreds of people have put their time and effort and investment in supporting regenerative ag, and we're really excited about that. And over the 30 years of dairy farming together, even though you all know as farmers the relentless work there is, we just hope we can share some information about what we do and how we do it and our excitement about it. We also, Blake mentioned that we have a variety of breeds. When learning about grass-based genetics, as we became grass-based dairy farmers 25 years ago, we really looked to foreign countries, and we looked to Germany. We looked for the old-fashioned Dutch genetics, the New Zealand genetics, Danish. We really love the German Fleck V. It's a dual-purpose breed, and they do really well on grass. And so we're excited about our composite breeds because we have been crossbreeding a lot of years.
Yeah, so there's a couple of components to what we're looking for when we're selecting genetics, and one is just simply that they're kind of a medium-sized animal that can go out and work for a living and really travel and go out and find their own grass. So we're not raising a bunch of spoiled babies who sit inside and expect their feed to be brought to them. And then, of course, the A2 genetics and just being open-minded to going all over the country to find the right cattle that we like. And we really don't care what color they are. We let that surprise us every 9 months. And we really enjoy our cows.
So at Alexander Family Farms, this is our mission. We strive to be a great caretakers of the land, and we do the right thing at every turn. We grow regenerative green pastures to produce healthy organic milk, meat, and eggs while creating a stable workplace for our family of employees. We aim to make our community and God smile.
So are we moving on to the last slide here?
So this is the product we have in the marketplace now, and we launched this in 2017. It's 6% organic whole milk, A2. So it's the digestible, the alternative dairy to alternative dairies. We do that pasteurization where it has a short shelf life, but it still has life in it. And we have a pasture promise seal. We're grass-based, and we promise to always be on pasture during the grazing season and beyond. And we're excited for people to come to our farm anytime and see how we do that.
Yeah, we try to do as much as we can for the community and be a kind of a shining light in our community and what we do. And this is a whole bunch of kids from neighboring areas in town that come out and adopt a calf every year for about a couple months, and they work with it every week, and it's just a lot of fun. And we've got hundreds and literally thousands of kids that have participated in that program.
Yeah, we'll get anywhere from 120 to 180 a year.
And we'd like to just wrap up here with a quote that our daughter Vanessa used when she was in college. It's not necessarily her quote, but when you realize that your gifts are not for you, but for those you come in contact with.
It's a life-changing event.
And so that's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do, is really to make better meat, milk, and eggs for all people, so that they can be all that they can be. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're happy to answer any questions.
Oh, wow. Thanks, Blake and Stephanie. I think I'll try some of the A2 leche now. Thank you very much. Again, thank you for those that perhaps were not watching us at the beginning of this keynote. It's such a beautiful day. It's raining. It's raining, not so much, but it will be a very comfortable walk going from the keynote to a different workshop at Asilomar if we were there. But let's move on, and let's move to Georgia. Georgia in my mind. The very first time that I heard about Georgia, it was a few years back when I came to this country in the LA area, and I used to be a bar boy at a nightclub, high-end, and I was very lucky to see some of those old-timers performing. One of them was the late Ray Charles, and he used to play that song, Georgia in My Mind. I would have never thought that 30 years later I would be hearing about Georgia so much like we have lately, unfortunately, under those circumstances. But fortunately enough, things are changing a lot, and we have a excellent farm and individuals that are making this happen. From Georgia, Matthew and Athea Rayford, Giller Farm, Brunswick, sorry. Remember, Inglés es mi segundo idioma. So English is my second language. It was Espanol, otro gallo cantaría. It'll be a little different, but maybe we'll get there one day. Matthew grew up breaking the dirt and trading crookneck squash for sweet potatoes, raising hogs and chickens, and only going to the grocery store for sundries. After a military career, then graduating from the Culinary Institute, of America in Hyde Park, New York, Matthew returned to the farm in 2011 to continue the traditions of Gulagichi heritage. Excuse me again if I'm not saying it the right way, but I will learn. And to create an authentic farm to fork experience for locals. He received a certification as an ecological horticulturist from the University of California, Santa Cruz Center for the Agroecology and Sustainability Food Systems, which is not too far away from here, 25 minutes. In 2015, Matthew and partners opened the Farmer and the Ladder on Newcastle Street, helping jumpstart the revival of Brunswick historic downtown. Thea lives and works in Atlanta, but her passion for Gillar Farms keeps her traveling back and forth 4 hours each way on the weekends to make sure things get done. Perfecto. You gotta check on El Senor, making sure things get done. 10 years ago, they dove head into the family life out of the deep interest in serving her community. Tia, the community interest and her personal interest. Join me to welcome El Senor, Matthew, and Tia, and let's learn from them and see what they're doing out there in Georgia. Bienvenidos.
Hello, everyone. This session here is about how to work to become a successful farmer. I may not have all of the answers, but I'm going to try to give as many as I possibly can. My name is Matthew Lee Rayford. My sister and I, Althea Rayford, farm on our family land that's been in our family since 1874. I am the 6th generation to be on the land farming, and my children are the 7th to have planted, harvested, and eaten from a crop off of this land. It has been a uphill battle, I think, to make sure that that this land continues to give forth its bounty. But it has always been the best thing for our community. So I am glad to be home, glad to be doing these things. A caveat that I want to put in is, a lot of they say the devil is in the details, and I will definitely say that the way we farm here, a lot of it has to do with the devil in the details. My sister Althea handles anything that has to do with certifications, anything that has to do with emails or inquiries, anything that has to do with any type of paperwork. If there needs to be some very specific kind of web design, she talks to the people about that. And I am boots on the ground. So I pretty much sit back and not sit back, but I pretty much do the tilling and the planting. My sister and I also work together on all of our big plant outs. I do all the little small ones with my cousin. And so we have some very specific things that we do. My sister always says that she has a black thumb, which is not remotely the truth, because she can really grow some amazing flowers. And pretty much everything else that she's touched out here has been amazing. I think it's just house plants that she just kind of like has a hard time with. But that's a whole nother story. I will definitely like to cover a couple of little things here. Being on a family-run farm is, I don't know how to explain it. I do know how to explain it. Can be very challenging when you both have these like polar opposite ideas of the way a farm should run. If you are getting your own farm and deciding that you're getting ready, you end up arguing sometimes with yourself about what's best and what are the best practices. One of the things that Althea and I have found to be very, very useful and successful is we always figure out as many of the pros and cons that we can possibly put together for whatever the project is that we're thinking about or getting ready to present to each other. And that has proven to be extremely helpful in us figuring it out, because as we're doing kind of like our presentation to each other, there's oftentimes these aha moments where you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that part. Oh yeah, I did it. And so being able to talk some of those things through has really been a way for us to really kind of like solidify what we want to do and stay on track. So, Mother Nature has a mind of her own. So I think the other thing that we really have to think about being successful is where climate change falls, and where we can make sure that the regenerative agriculture that we're talking about, which is about rejuvenation, it's about trying to be at a zero waste point, that we're paying attention also to what's going on in our own personal environment. So I always say to people that you're not going to be able to grow all the same things that someone else in another state is growing. So you have to kind of like think about the fact that everything that you're doing is about research. Because if this year, I'll use the weather for example. So last year, this time it was about 75 degrees. This year, in the same time period, it's 65 degrees. So it's a 10-degree difference. So that's what I mean by always being in a research mode, making sure that you're keeping your own personal almanac of how you plant and when you plant is extremely important. Matter of fact, I'll tell you how important it is. We have letters here on the farm written between my grandmother and my great grandmother that talk about what's being planted and also about what's being harvested. And we actually use those letters to plant greens, peas, and corn here at the farm. Because to the date, almost, even with all the things that are happening in the world so far as climate change goes, we have been able to successfully plant out at the right times every year. And because there's not like one letter that kind of says that, there's probably about 10 to 15 letters that we've been able to find that were from around 1939, 1940 to 1955, 1960. So we've been able to find these, look at them, and try to create our own farmer's almanac. Now, the reason I say that is because, yes, there's nothing wrong with going and buying a farmer's almanac and keeping up with it, but an almanac is a yearly cycle of what's going on. And I think that if you can hone in on what's happening on your farm every year, and always, I'm a chef also, and one of the big things that I always tell all my cooks is that they should always have a pen and a notepad on them at all times so they can jot down little notes. Just no way you can remember all this stuff, and after end of service, you'd be able to write it all down. The same with farming. You really have to think about, you're going to see a bug in a very specific time of year. You need to be able to jot that down, especially if you plan on remembering it 5 months later, or when the next cycle comes around for that bug. It could be a short life cycle for it. It could be a long life cycle for it. So you want to be able to kind of track those things. And so that also is kind of one of those pieces that I definitely want to talk about, which is, making sure that your record keeping is also on point. And so I'm in charge of very specific parts of our record keeping. I'm in charge of record keeping for compost. I'm in charge of seeds, as in how much do we need to purchase, and or how much is generated, from what's growing. And I'll use hibiscus as like an amazing deal here. So the hibiscus leaf we harvest, the calaxis, the reddish calaxis that's there, we harvest, and we also harvest the seeds from, so that we can continue to. We've been doing that now for the last 4 years. Now this is the first time we're probably going to plant almost an acre of hibiscus this year coming up. We've saved seed. We've been able to also kind of play it forward in some arenas where we're now selling the hibiscus seed. And so we've been able to keep record of the seeds, how long we've had them, and now we're selling them. We do the same with our Sea Island red peas. So we've been able to keep the records, been able to see how much we're able to produce. This year we're also planting an acre of Sea Island red peas. So we're able to do these things because we've been constantly doing the research, planting, documenting, and just trying to stay on top of as many of those things as possible. Let's see. I think one of the other things is making sure. I think one of the other things is that we plant also for ourselves, to make sure that we can eat also. And I think that's one of the big things that I want to take to all farmers that are listening and watching this, is that there should be no farmer that is not eating from the abundance that they are, whether they're planting it, whether it's or if it's animals and livestock, should never ever not be eating from the bounty that they have, unless there's some sort of medical restriction or something like that. But successful also has as much to do with money as it has to do with us also taking care of our health and taking care of our own families. And so I would super encourage everyone that's listening to make sure that they think about that when they're farming. Like, even if it means that you have to plant a very specific area that's just the kitchen garden, or if you can figure out a way, like if you're gonna do 200 pounds of pork is coming in off of your last hog or two that you're bringing in, then at least 10 pounds, if not more, 20 pounds of that should be for you and your family. Like, you should have your own bacon. You shouldn't be going to Winn-Dixie or Publix or anywhere buying bacon if you are producing bacon, right? Same way with all the other fruits and vegetables that you might be producing. There should be no way you ever go to the grocery and buy that product. It just that's not being successful. That's really, you're ending up putting yourself in a cycle of also, not taking care of yourself. Because see, I personally believe that when I eat nutrient dense food that comes from my area, I'm eating healthier. It's kind of like that. You know how the saying about the honeybee, right? You take that teaspoon of honey every day from where the environment is that you live in, from the honeybees that are in your area, and how it is supposed to help relieve some of the allergies that are out there. I believe that same thing about food, because we're part of our environment, whether we want to really believe it or not. We're an integral part of the environment, and any slip ups that we do should be trying our best to like make it work and make it happen. As in, like, if I don't do all my compost right this go around, I got to make sure I do it right next go around. I mean, we have to also give ourselves some wiggle room on what's the word? We're never gonna. We can we can strive to be perfectionists, but know that everything is not always going to be perfect. And I think that's the next level of the success. So we have, us being able to make money because we're paying attention to the environment. We also have us paying attention to the environment and feeding ourselves. And then we're taking care of our wellness. And then at the same token, we're also taking care of our community. So we have all of these pieces that are all interconnected. And I believe that the more that we do in those arenas, the more successful we will become. I also believe that, and like I said, this is my belief system. So if someone does not agree, I totally understand, because you're not living here in Brunswick, Georgia. You may have a whole different idea of how to do some of these exact same things. But also be thinking about, running joke is winter is coming. And that's the thing about, I know I just talked about eating, but I'm also going to talk about preservation. So anything that we can preserve also for ourselves to put up, whether it be potted meat, whether it is making a jam or sauce from extra tomatoes or pickling okra or whatever, we should also always be creating a reserve for ourselves. And if we end up having a larger abundance, call people over and say, hey, let's do this thing together. I got a bumper crop of okra, and let's just make some pickled okra. So I think that there are some things that we have to think about also within our community. We have to think about to make sure that we're also getting people that are also in our space that don't necessarily look like us, walk like us, and talk like us, but they still have the value and the understanding that they need to eat healthy. So I think we need to make sure that we bring a seat to the table for anyone that is looking for those kinds of things, and also making sure that within the process, we're not overlooking other people that that may be less fortunate. We always have to make sure that I think being successful also has to do with the community work that you do and the community work that you're putting into place to help other people. So within the thought process of, you know, we're planting, we're trying to be successful and make a little money. We're eating from that food. We are looking at our wellness based on that. And then now we're talking about getting into the community and helping the community. Like, once again, all these things are what helps you become more and more successful. And I think the community aspect of your farming should be in there. And I think that also helps for there to be racial equity as people are doing things, because they're not looking at it as just a money thing. They're looking at it also as a community piece. I also have to say that we have to also think about the fact that our farmers are actually aging. And in a lot of places, you know, the average is 65, if not older. And so we also have to make sure that we are teaching our children the importance of not just farming, but importance of taking care of the environment while we're also farming, so that there can actually be, you know, I always say that my goal in life right now, to know that I'm successful, is that this land will be ready for my children's children. So that's 3 generations now, right? And I think that that's another way to look at being successful, is making sure that we're teaching our children the value of the land, the value of producing things off of the land, and then the value of the community that they're in. I think that also helps shape and allow us to become much more successful farmers. If there are any questions or anything that anybody would like to talk about, my email address is shafarmermatthew@gmail.com.
Javier, you're muted.
Got it. There you go. Technology. Of course, I'll have to have one of those moments. So, gracias, Senor Matthew. Definitely, I'm going to be sending an email your way so I can get some of those hibiscus so I can make my agua de Jamaica. Like, you know, horchata, Jamaica, when you go to the Mexican restaurant. And also the seeds. I love to get some of those seeds domestically instead of importing them from Mexico to grow my hibiscus myself. And definitely, if I can get a hold of at least 20 pounds of the when you butcher a hog, so I can make my carnitas. That'll be delicious. Definitely, I do eat out of the farm, and I make sure that everybody around me eats out of the farm. So when you come and visit us, you will be eating out of our farm too, which you are welcome to. Okay, so the next successful farmer for this morning, we have El Senor Ben Burkett. He wears a lot of sombreros, but let's talk about a little bit, or he'll tell us what he does. B&B Farm, Petal, Mississippi. Ben Burkett is a 4th-generation farmer in Petal, Mississippi. His family has been growing food on the same plot of land since 1889. That is a long time ago, amigos. When his great-grandfather received a homestead from the United States government just 24 years after the end of the Civil War, it was the first African-American owned farms in the state. Since then, the farm has grown to roughly 320 acres, depending on the season. In his fields, he grows okra, kale, turnips, rutabaga, watermelon, sweet corn, eggplant, and a wide variety of peppers. I like to get some of those peppers. I'm sure they grow some really, really tasty ones and spicy. He sells his produce in restaurants in New Orleans. Ooh, it's got to be spicy. As well as at local groceries and farmers markets. Before Hurricane Katrina destroyed his fences, the farm also hosted livestock, chickens, goats, sheep, cattle, hogs, ducks, and turkeys. In 2014, he won the James Beard Foundation Award for his work to support the family farming. Let's give al señor Burkett una bienvenida. And as amigo Bob would say, take it away, Ben.
My family farm was founded in 1889. My great grandfather, George Tisdale, got a homestead from the United States government, giving him 164 acres in South Mississippi in Perry County at the time. So I often wonder, this was just a little 20 years after the Civil War. And there was a number of Black families in that area that got homesteads. You had the Tisdale family, the Travis family, the McNair family, the McGivray family, the Dancer family. A number of Black farmers was able to get homesteads. And I have the original document in my possession, signed by President Grover Cleveland himself, giving this 164 acres to George Tisdale. And the farm was subdivided in 1968 between George Tisdale heirs. My mother was named Bessie Tisdale Burkett. She was the only child of her father. Each family got 29 acres of each heir, between 28 and 29 acres. So my mother got her 29 acres. She bought 3 more of the other heirs out. So she ended up with 111 acres out the original homestead, which is all still in the family. And my mother and father bought 40 acres in 1938 for $300. And every generation have added to the land. And now the land is 310 acres. And it's a diversified farming operation now. We have about 100 acres of old growth longleaf pine, 150 acres of cropland, and it's the timber is longleaf pine. It's probably some of the best growing trees in the South. And it's been found out those trees are some of the best trees for carbon sequestration. So it's a whole program to repopulate with longleaf pine. It started off with horse and power. I remember distinctly in 1965, my father bought his first international Super 8 tractor. So we transitioned into tractors now in the farm, and we have several tractors now. So it's mechanical. We have some of the best planters there. We have some monsoon air planters for planting leafy vegetables. And we organize cooperatives. Our local cooperative, Indian Spring Farm Association, we had a high of 56 members. Now we only have 33 members within that community, within a 50-mile radius. This facility is used where we bring our products to, and we cut, wash, bag, ship it out all over the country, everywhere east of the Mississippi River, from Chicago to New York to Washington, and most of it within a 300-mile radius. Now, we are a bigger part of the Mississippi Association Cooperative, which is all the small cooperatives in the state of Mississippi, which we have 17 members. And the Mississippi is a part of the Federation of Southern Cooperative Land Assessment Fund. We have membership from Texas to North Carolina. But that cooperative, by working together, I would say the center of the community now in Petal, Mississippi. We have several different meetings there. And they have had weddings there, and it's just been a marvelous place for us to have in the community, where we can have cold storage and trucks and we own specialized equipment together. And one unique thing about it, man, you know, we have talk about Mississippi. Mississippi we number 50 and everything. But the original members of Indian Spring Co-op was 8 farmers, all are deceased. But even then, in 1967, 68, you had 6 black farmers and 2 white farmers. They were all small farmers, and the whole thing of working together superseded the race thing. So Indian Spring Cooperative have always been a diverse membership, even today. So it's something about when you're in an area where all farmers are all equal, they are forced to work together for survival. And it worked out well. The cooperative itself now is 44 years old. The president of the cooperative now is the son of the first president. But by working together, we've been able to survive. And I said earlier about family farm, but also working together have been a key issue to our survival of small farm. It's a small African American farm. So the farm has been real supportive of my family and my sister family and my brother. And we all still there. And we hope that the farm continue for the next generation. But we got one obstacle, I would say. I said 10 years ago, I was 10 miles from the city limit. So now I'm 4 miles from the city limit. I can almost see subdivisions. So we're going to try to maintain family farming in it as long as we can. Thank you again for allowing me to be on this panel to discuss successful farming. And I've often been puzzled how to answer that question. What is a successful farmer? What make a farm success? I would say in most cases in the South here, it always been a family thing that made it successful in a generation of knowledge, labor, and capital. But I know when I began farming, to say on my own, 1973 or 74, the way they would do that, your father will go to the bank and he would somewhere make arrangement to get all your inputs, your seed, fertilizer, chemicals, diesel, whatever you need for the first year. So the next year you would have to go do that on your own. And they will still support you, but you set up your own accounts, your own at the co-op store for feed, your co-op store for your supply. So you had that support of one generation help you move into the next generation. And also I remember in 72 or 73, along the same time, we went down to what was the FSA office, Farm Services. No, it was the old ASCS, Agricultural Stability Conservation Service office, and took his name off as operator and put my name on as operator. So you learn that process of how to deal with this FSA and the USDA office. So now after 49 years, my time to go down to the FSA office with my daughter and take my name off as operator and begin that whole process of putting all the things in the next generation. So you have to have that generation support. And you also have to have the ability to listen and go to different places and observe what's going on, how you can bring it back to incorporate it in your farm. When I started farming, we didn't have any type of irrigation system. Now you hardly can farm without irrigation systems. So I have 3 irrigation systems now. High tunnel houses, All the things have changed in the last 15 or 20 years. So you have to keep yourself knowledgeable of what's going on, marketing situations, how to grow different crops. A few years ago, kale was a hot item, growing kale for consumption. Everybody wanted to buy kale. And I used to go to the farm market and I tell everybody when I was growing up, we planted kale in the pasture for the cows to eat. Now it's a good item. It's a good item to sell all types of kale. I grew up as a cotton farmer, and I translated out of cotton to what I grow now. So you have to always constantly be changing, from culinary herb to bok choy to, it's a growing Hispanic community in South Mississippi. So I'm learning how to grow crop that Hispanics like to eat. But again, it's a matter of learning how to adapt with change, keep up with marketing trends, and being very, very productive. I often said now that farming when I began, it was labor intensive. You had to work sun up to sundown in the field, and you still have to do that. But more now, it's more management intensive now. With the rules and regulations, food safety regulations, health safety regulations, you have to keep documentation on all of that now. When you plant, where you plant, what you use, seed. So really now it's more of a management thing. And most farmers I know now have a computer, they have a laptop. We have these AI phones that we can keep all the documentation in. Years ago, we didn't have that. So we're looking how to continue that information. I know in my community now, we have one or two farmers that do telemarketing, I guess you would say, where they send out an email on the Facebook or some other way and say, I'm preparing 50 boxes of what's on the farm for delivery at a certain point. They have a number of customers already lined it up. But the success here in the South have always been an effort of the entire family working together, sticking together through thick and thin. Been some bad times in 49 years, been some years. We had to deal with hurricanes, we had to deal with droughts, we had to deal with insect problems. In some years we had oversupply in the marketplace, labor issues, but you learn how to cope with it. And I like to say farmers are some of the most resilient people I know. They always say, well, this was a bad year, but I know next year gonna be even better. We always said next year gonna be better than this year. And we definitely can say that 2020 was a year with the pandemic, with people losing their jobs and not having enough money to buy food, close up restaurants, close up wholesale companies, didn't want buying as much. That whole food chain broke down. So we really learned some lesson out of that, how we can come together and do even more working together. And I know many other farmers on this panel can say the same thing. In the dairy industry and the food industry in Georgia, it's a matter of communication. And we have, with this technology now, I talk with farmers in Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi, basically almost on a daily basis. If he takes an iPhone, I'm not really in computers as much as I should be, but I'm learning. But we have to have a way of communication. Strengths in number, and we are getting fewer and fewer numbers of farmers. But at the same time, I see a whole nother generation interested in farming. And I would close with saying that listen to my daughter. This year, we're going to build a tiny house on the farm for people that want to come and stay for a week or two, month or two, to learn about how we farm and the techniques we use. But people just want to come from the great state of California and be with us for a while and see how we farm, the day-to-day activity of a family farm. And we're going to welcome everyone from there. And I've been blessed by being members of National Family Farm Coalition and other organizations to travel all over the world. I've been on every continent just about, and that was a blessing. Growing up in South Mississippi, I was 21 years old before I ever went into a restaurant. So for me to be able to say I've been to places I've been in this world and seeing the things I've seen, it's been just a tremendous experience. But I would say the key to successful family farming is just what the word says, family farming.
All right. Well, thank you, Senor Burkett. And thank you for keeping the land in the family. That's a long time, and I'm sure you have somebody else in mind to be right behind you. All right, so we got to the end,